Refinitiv to host you today. Today we're going to take a closer look at mega deals and to show a case of a deal that caught everybody's attention within our workspace and help you discover the data, the information, and the insights that we provide here at Refinitiv. My name is Mahmoud Khlefat, and I'm very delighted to host you today. I am joined by my good colleague, Gal Devere, who is a customer success manager at Refinitiv. We're going to start from a different place. Let's start with something that we have seen in the previous quarters of this year. This year, 2020, has been a very interesting year, very challenging one with the pandemic, but very interesting as well with the implications it had on capital markets. One of the things that we have noticed is that mega deals have reacted in a very interesting way. As you look here at this graph, which we sourced from our deals intelligence team, the second and the third quarters have seen a hit in the volume of mega deals. In general, M&A has seen a hit and it has slowed down, but mega deals have been particularly hit hard. The second quarter in particular has been interesting. We have witnessed the first week of no global mega M&A deals for the first time since 2006. That is almost 14 years of a record of mega deals happening every week, and we've seen an end to that in April. That case was not necessarily the same across all sectors. If we look at the tech sector has been seeing levels that we haven't seen since the dot-com era. One of the deals that has featured recently is the ARM deal. ARM in the UK being acquired by NVIDIA from SoftBank. And if you look at the Japan, for example, volumes and deals, we see as well that deal being featured quite heavily and being featured twice. Once back in 2016, when SoftBank acquired ARM for almost 31 billion, and today when ARM is being sold by SoftBank to NVIDIA for $40 billion. What is quite interesting about the ARM deal, not only the size, not the fact that it's transformational, but the fact that it happened at points in time when things were very uncertain. When SoftBank acquired this was shortly after the EU referendum in the UK, when the UK voted to exit the European Union. And when it's happening today, again, a very uncertain time. The pandemic and its effects, and the fact that the UK is still trying to finish that exit or execute on Brexit. With that, I want to turn to Gal and look at these trends within Workspace. Gal, would you be able to show us something on Workspace, and how do we look at these trends with respect to mega deals?
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. The first thing we'll do is look at M&A trends in general using the screener tool. I'll just set my universe to search for deals within the M&A asset class. Then let's search back as far as 2018, for example. And as I start adding criteria, my deals will start populating on the right side. And since we're looking at mega deals, I'm going to look at deals with a rank value of over $1 billion. As you can see, I have a rather substantial list of deals here. But what would really be interesting to see is how the volumes of mega deals have changed year on year or quarter on quarter. So let's do a volume analysis. And you can see the annual volumes. But if we dig deep, just a bit deeper, and look at changes on a quarterly basis, what we'll see here is that dip you were referring to earlier, whereas Q2 2020 had a very, very low number of deals as well as the deal volume. And right here at Q3, we've had a significant increase of global M&A mega deals. Now,
Question to you, can we dig deeper into that quarter then?
Yes, of course. Let's have a look at the deals that make up these numbers. And let me just sort those by the size of the deal. So what we're able to see here is a recent deal where Altice was bought by Next, but the ARM deal that you were referring to earlier is still very close to the top of the list for $40 billion. And if we click here on the deal tear sheet, we'll be able to see the full details of the deal, such as the financing, the acquirer, the divestor, even the board attitude for the deal.
Excellent. Now let me ask you, one of the things when mega deals happen is the reaction to mega deals. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that, Gal.
Certainly.
What was the news?
So the first thing we'll do is, let's find out news about ARM Limited. And what we're seeing here, Mahmoud, is just a running live ticker of news stories that have come out around the company. And if you see these icons on the right, this indicates significant news. So back on the 16th of September, you can see that this has come up with the story of NVIDIA acquiring ARM.
Mm-hmm.
If I click into the news story, I'll be able to see the information that was available at the time around the deal. So this would have popped up as a significant piece of news that's worth paying attention to.
And let's underline that piece of, the fact that our news at Refinitiv is curated, right? So we do highlight the pieces of news that are significant to the audience, which makes the sort of browsing of workspace and understanding the news more intelligent in that sense and more targeted. Excellent stuff. So Gal, that is the news. What did the companies say about the deal? Maybe you can take us on a tour there.
Certainly. So that's actually an interesting question. We can have a look at both the announcements by ARM, which is a private company, and the announcements by NVIDIA around the deal. Let's take a look at ARM first. If I go to the company's page under corporate events, just have to set my timeline. And here's the company's announcement around the acquisition. To see the full transcript, we would have to go to the NVIDIA page, since they are a publicly listed company and the events are much more detailed. So let's do that now.
So that's under events. And do we have to do the search, or how do you usually do this?
Typically, I would have my events set to, let's say, next and last 7 days, just to see what's happening on a regular basis with the company. And when we're talking about future events, we would have an expected transcript in most cases, as well as the details of the analyst calls, the phone numbers to dial in, as well as an ability to add them to your calendar so you don't miss the call.
Excellent.
Now let's look for that announcement regarding the acquisition. I'll just type in a keyword, ARM Ltd, and search for all events which mention it. Okay, here we go. That's the M&A call for the acquisition. And if I click on the transcript, I can see the participants on the call, as well as a full transcript of the event. And I could search for specific keywords, such as the reason for the acquisition or what kind of synergies may have been considered.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Now, we've seen the news. We've seen what each company, how each company mentions the deal and how they present it. Now, probably one of the most interesting bits in my career has always been how the market reacts to it. And to my mind, we'll come to that later probably on the stock price performance and owners or shareholders' reaction. But let's start a little bit with some of the experts, so the research community. What do the analysts who understand the sector, who speak to the investors, who understand the value chain within these companies, what do they say about this? How can we explore a little bit on that within Workspace?
Certainly. So I can either from the company's homepage go into the company research, or I can just run a quick search for NVIDIA research. And let's have a look at what the analysts are saying. Now, Mahmoud, I've already taken the liberty of adding a few keywords that would be relevant or useful to an M&A banker in such a case. Words such as ratio, whether the deal is attractive, if there are any synergies, does it have an accretive or dilutive effect on the acquirer? Does that make sense to you?
And it does absolutely make sense because this is what investors, this is what analysts, this is what bankers are going to be to look for. Yes, there is a big deal, but does it make sense? Is it accretive? Is it dilutive? As you say, are there any synergies? And so on and so forth. And that'll help the audience here or the user understand the sentiment around it. But what I find something that I want to highlight here, and I'm glad you did this, is that Refinitiv then and Workspace allows us the opportunity to be very targeted in our approach. And I know research has its cost implications and has its entitlements, and people have a limited amount of time to look into pages and pages of publication. What I find very powerful here is that we can be extremely targeted. I want to know if this deal was accretive, anybody talking about the synergies, anybody talking about the financial effects. And as you rightly did here, do the research, do the search accordingly, find and you probably should see us. I'm going to stop here talking and you tell us if we can look at a page or a paragraph where these pieces of info that we're after are there.
Certainly. So what you're seeing here on the right are all the pieces of research written about NVIDIA which mention these words somewhere in the document. If we scroll to the right, we can see the contributors here, and let's just pick out a report by Barclays. If I click on the title of the research report, the first thing I'll see is the table of contents, and there are a few interesting things to note here. First of all, we have the content for each individual page. I can also view a thumbnail to see whether this is a chart or a table or anything that might be interesting to me. With the keywords that we selected earlier, I can actually see where they appear in the document, on which exact page. So if I click on accretive here, I can see the context where the deal is expected to be accretive to NVIDIA's GM and EPS immediately upon closing. So that's something that's valuable.
So instead of downloading a full research report and spending 10 minutes reading it and finding the piece of information we're after, what you're saying is that in less than 5 seconds, we could do the targeted search, find the exact paragraph and the text around it, and I can get my conclusion and just move on to what I have been doing before, right?
Correct. And I can also decide that I want only specific pages out of the entire document. But just for a quick example, let's open up the document. And you can see how you can quickly scroll to the most relevant parts that mention those keywords. So this is the research report. And on the top right here, I can see my keywords and where they appear. So if I click on accretive, it highlights where in the document this sentence appears.
It's excellent. So in the sense,
sorry.
if I am on a customer call and I want to work on the financial effects of this deal, I can in a split second do this while I'm on the call, get to the paragraph, read what the numbers are or what the conclusion is, and back myself up on that customer call without having to do a lot or stop or disrupt my call or my workflow.
Exactly right. And since we're discussing the deal being accretive, let's see where the analyst thought it might be dilutive to the company. So from a stock perspective, we can see this near-term neutral, as the deal is effectively break-even, assuming some synergies. And we wonder if it is dilutive when you include the earnouts.
Okay, that's a quite interesting. We don't want to comment a lot on the deal, but it sounds like the analyst is saying it is break even. There is an earn-out piece. So all of a sudden, by being targeted in a split second, you told me what the structure of the deal is, which parts of that structure could affect the financial outlook in the future, what could make NVIDIA's stock outperform, or what could make it underperform given these earn-outs. So automatically, the human brain basically is looking for these earnouts, or could question them, or could go ahead and analyze them, and then see what the implications are for the next pitch or for the next mandate that we have or that we're working on.
That's correct, yes. And since we've discussed the company's financials, let's maybe have a look at the raw data, what the company has reported and what information is available about it, and see why the analyst may have reached their conclusions as they did. So I'll go again into ARM Ltd's company page, and let's have a look at their income statement. Mind you, this is a private company.
Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So,
Can I
yes.
ask you then, if we want to be targeted again, because if I am doing something, if it's a full analysis, clearly we can get to the data. But if I am, again, that scenario of being on the phone or having a discussion or working on an email or another presentation, and I want to consult the numbers, can we be as well targeted in finding the exact number? Like, let's say I'm doing the multiples. I want to look at the multiple of this deal to EBITDA or to net income or to sales even.
Certainly. So we can use this search field to search for any measurement that we need, and it will immediately be highlighted.
Perfect. So we can pick that up, quickly
And we
plug
can
it
see
into
that
our
change year
Excel,
on year.
and move on
Exactly.
from there. Excellent. That's excellent. Let's turn to the other piece on, how well that deal has been received. So the first one we said was the news. We looked at what the companies say about the deal. We looked at what the research community is saying about the deal. And thanks to you here, we've touched on how any professional in the industry can take a look at the numbers, do their own calculations, and come to their own conclusions. The other two pieces that I would like to cover is, how did the stock price react? Because with big deals like this, with big transformational deals as well, when the news hits the market, how did the investors react to this? What actually happened with the stock price, and how did it receive the news?
Certainly. So let's have a look at the stock price. First thing we'll look at here is a simple chart, just to keep things simple and eliminate noise. Let's just look at NVIDIA for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can see here is, apologies, this is, so let's have a look at NVIDIA's price chart. What you can see here is the price performance, and I've overlaid that with Reuters investor briefs and research reports. So for example, if we look at the 13th and 14th of September, we can see that the news story came out of the acquisition and how that may have affected the share price. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see that the immediate effect may have been a slight uptick in price, whereas a few days following the announcement, the price went down a little bit. And there have
The
been some
question
research
there
reports here.
is that, oh, thanks. That's actually very helpful. But the question there, what happens after the announcement, is that related to the company itself, or can we see if it's a industry-wide, index-wide, sector-wide, or sort of like market-wide trend? Because that'll help us as well understand if investors are liking this or not.
Sure. So first, let's compare NVIDIA to the most relevant index. It is NASDAQ listed. So let's compare to the NASDAQ composite. And you can see that the chart has immediately changed to a rebased chart where we can track relative performance.
Excellent.
Adding to that, I can see NVIDIA's immediately NVIDIA's sector indices. So if we're looking at, for example, the S&P Infotech Index or semiconductors, we can see how those have performed similarly to the stock price. So there has been a downfall here as well for the market as a whole.
Okay, that's helpful. And that is something to look for in the future, because as we know, the deal hasn't closed. And there is an equity component here in the sense that NVIDIA has to go out and issue stock to its shareholders, raise capital, which is going to be part of this deal. And that is going to be key. At which level do they issue that stock, right? So whoever is looking at this deal closely and following it into the future, between now and when it's supposed to close, looking at this is going to be of relevance. Which leads me to the other point.
Certainly,
What are the owners saying? And
apologies.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just thought that it might be interesting to see, aside from the price performance, which venues the stock is trading on, and especially how the volume of trading is looking.
Perfect. So we can have even a finer look of the details here, the dynamics behind, once the announcement has hit or thereafter, or if there are any subsequent announcements. What you're saying is that we can go and see where is the trading sort of activity and the volume, where is it coming from and how much is it and how big is it and whether it has any significance on the deal and its prospect of closing.
Correct. So what you'll be able to see here is a breakdown of the venues, with FINRA being the largest in terms of market share. And if I look here on the top right, I can see the price of NVIDIA and also these gray bars indicating trading volumes for that day. So I can see that the volumes have had quite a significant increase over the last few days.
Very interesting. Thanks, Gal. Shall we turn to ownership? Because as we said, if they're raising capital, then the big owners have to be happy with this and have to actually participate. How can we explore who are the owners? How much do they have? Do we have to worry about them? Can we monitor them going forward and see what the reaction to the deal is?
Certainly. So once again, I can turn to the company's overview page, open the ownership tab, and the first page I'll see shows me the top 10 investors that hold stake in the company, as well as the date from which they've reported their holdings. So that gives me some clarity as to how up to date this is. I can also see the amount of free float and the shares outstanding, but I think a more interesting breakdown would be a breakdown of funds and sub-funds that hold stake in the company. So what I'll be able to see here is, yes, Vanguard Group holds stake in NVIDIA, but which specific funds make up those numbers? So I can see the outstanding holdings, the change in position from the last reported date. And if I click this drop-down menu, I can see a breakdown of the individual funds.
Perfect.
So that gives me a pretty good idea of who owns the company and who I should approach.
Right. And we can keep an eye on changes, right, in this. So if somebody is not happy, they're probably exiting, or if they see this as risky, they're probably not happy with it and selling their stake, etc., etc., etc. I'm not saying this is what's happening here, but this is what we can monitor through our ownership data.
Correct. I can see a historical view of shareholding and
Mhm.
how that has changed quarter on quarter or year on year. I can see Vanguard's change in ownership, for example, each quarter.
Perfect. That's extremely helpful, especially going forward, I guess, because some of these deals could take a bit of time till they close. So we can see actually if somebody, as I said, is getting cold on it or lukewarm on the deal, especially amongst the big shareholders. I've noticed the navigation is quite easy because it's, as you know, with Workspace, it's now web-based. So
Yes,
do you
we
want to say
have
something
tried.
about that?
Certainly. So the idea behind Refinitiv Workspace is really to make it easier for the end user to find what they need. So you might see up on the top here different menus. I'm at the moment pretending to be with an investment banker workflow, and these menus have been specifically selected to be very convenient to find. For example, if I want to find primary markets deals or M&A transactions, I can find them here, broker research here, etc., etc. But we also integrated some very powerful search features. So as a quick example, if I might want to search for news or set up news alerts about NVIDIA in the future, all I have to do is start typing the name of the company. It will actually give me, because I'm supposedly a banker, it will actually give me a pop-up view of what the share price is doing, some financial metrics and ratios, when the next events are taking place, as well as some recent news. And then I can decide what do I want to see in more detail about the company. Typing in news, for example, will give me the latest news for that company.
Perfect. That's very helpful. I'm very grateful that you've shown us these features that are very powerful within Workspace. But that brings us to the end of this deep dive into this mega deal. Quite transformational, quite interesting, and the news keeps flowing on it. So it'd be interesting to see how it develops. That said, what is constant here is the fact that Workspace is empowering the end user to explore various aspects of this deal and to stay in tune with the developments of this deal as we move forward and as it moves towards potential closing. With that, thank you very much, Gal. It's been a pleasure to have you, and it's been a pleasure to host our audience today. Please register and participate in our deal intelligence webinars. These take place on a quarterly basis where we explore the latest trends in corporate finance and take a look at what's in stock in the coming quarters. Thank you very much and enjoy your day.